In the ancient land of Canaan lived a man named Abraham. He was known for his unshakable faith in God. For years, Abraham and his wife, Sarah, had longed for a child. They were old, far beyond the years of childbearing. Yet God had made them a promise. They would have a son, and through him, their descendants would be as numerous as the stars in the sky. It seemed impossible, a dream that had faded with time. But Abraham held onto that promise, his faith a steady flame in the dark. And then, the miracle happened. Sarah gave birth to a son, and they named him Isaac, which means he laughs, because their hearts were filled with a joy so immense it could only be expressed in laughter. Isaac was the light of their lives, the living proof of God's faithfulness. He grew into a strong, bright young man, and Abraham loved him more than words could say. Every day with Isaac was a gift, a fulfillment of the promise that had once seemed so distant. One day, the voice of God came to Abraham again, but this time, the words were not of comfort or promise. They were a command that struck Abraham's heart like a bolt of lightning. "Take your son," God said, "your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you." How could this be? The son God had given, the child of the promise, was now to be taken away. Abraham's mind reeled. His soul was a tempest of confusion and anguish. Every fiber of his being screamed in protest. Yet, deep within him, the faith that had defined his life held firm. He did not understand, but he trusted. He believed that the same God who could bring life from a barren womb could also bring life from death. With a heavy but resolute heart, Abraham began to prepare. Would obey. Early the next morning, before the sun had even kissed the horizon, Abraham rose. He saddled his donkey and called 2 of his servants. He split the wood for the burnt offering, his hands moving with a mechanical steadiness that betrayed the turmoil in his soul. And then he woke Isaac. The journey to Moriah would take 3 days. 3 days of walking side by side with the son he was commanded to sacrifice. Imagine the weight of each step, the silence, thick with unspoken words. Abraham looked at his son, so full of life and innocence, and his heart ached. The servants walked with them, unaware of the divine test unfolding before them. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He turned to his servants. "Stay here with the donkey," he said. "The boy and I will go over there to worship, and then we will come back to you. We will come back." Even in this moment of supreme trial, Abraham's faith spoke of a future, of a return. As they began to climb the mountain, just the 2 of them, Isaac noticed something was missing. He turned to his father, his young voice clear and curious. "Father?" he asked. "Yes, my son," Abraham replied, his own voice tight with emotion. "The fire and the wood are here," Isaac said, "but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" The innocent question pierced Abraham's heart more sharply than any knife. He looked at his beloved son and, with a strength that could only come from God, he answered, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." And so they continued their climb in silence, Isaac trusting his father's words, and Abraham clinging to his faith in God's provision. Each step up that mountain was an act of obedience, a testament to a trust that defied all human understanding. When they reached the place God had shown him, Abraham's movements were deliberate, almost ceremonial. He built an altar of stones, carefully placing one on top of the other. He arranged the wood he had carried upon the altar. The air was still. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then he turned to Isaac. There are no words in the scripture to describe this moment, no record of a struggle or a plea. There was only a profound trust between a father and a son. Abraham bound Isaac, his hands trembling but his will set. He laid his son on the altar, on top of the wood. The sacrifice was prepared. The promise was laid upon the stones. Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife, the polished blade glinting in the sunlight. He raised it high, ready to bring it down, ready to obey God's command completely, to surrender everything he held dear. The entire universe seemed to pause in that single, terrible, and holy moment. Just as Abraham's arm began its descent, a voice thundered from the heavens, shattering the silence. "Abraham, Abraham." He froze, the knife held aloft. "Here I am," he answered. The The angel of the Lord called out, "Do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." Abraham lowered his arm, gasping, his body shaking with relief and awe. He looked up, and there, in a thicket nearby, was a ram, its horns caught in the branches. It was the lamb God had provided. Abraham quickly untied Isaac, holding him in an embrace that spoke of terror and joy, of death and new life. He took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering in place of his son. Abraham called that place "The Lord will provide." And to this day, it is said, "On the mountain of the Lord it will be provided." The voice of the angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time. This was not a test, but a confirmation. "I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this, and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed, because you have obeyed me." The covenant was not just renewed, it was magnified. Abraham's act of ultimate faith had unlocked a blessing that would ripple through all of history. The promise was now sealed with the proof of his obedience. He had been willing to give up the very son through whom the promise was to be fulfilled, trusting that God's plan was greater than his own understanding. With their faith tested and proven, their bond deeper than ever, Abraham and Isaac descended the mountain together. They rejoined the servants who had been waiting for them, and together they returned home to Beersheba. Life went on, but nothing was ever the same. A new depth of trust and understanding had been forged in the fire of that trial on Mount Moriah. Abraham now knew God, not just as a promise maker, but as a provider, a redeemer. Isaac, who had been willing to be the sacrifice, now understood the cost of obedience and the miracle of deliverance in a way no one else could. The legacy of that day is not one of fear or a demanding God, but of a profound and unwavering faith. It's a story that echoes through the ages, reminding us that even in our darkest trials, when all seems lost, faith is the light that leads us to the place where God provides. Abraham's obedience became a cornerstone for generations, a timeless testament to the power of trusting God completely. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content.